This story about my life is how I stood up to my mother-in-law and found my voice. I married the love of my life, Daniel, on a crisp autumn evening. It should have been the beginning of bliss, but I didn't just marry him. I married his mother, too. Margaret Whitmore was a force of nature. Her presence was suffocating, her voice a thin needle piercing through every moment of peace. A wife's duty is to serve her husband, she'd say, folding her arms as she inspected my dinner preparations. This! This isn't how Daniel likes his steak. She'd snatch the knife from my hand and take over, her eyes glinting with silent victory. The first months of our marriage were a waking nightmare. Margaret had a key to our home. She rearranged my furniture without asking, threw out my clothes, deeming them inappropriate, and even accidentally deleted my work files when she used my laptop. Daniel, ever the dutiful son, didn't see it. Or maybe he chose not to. But I saw it. I felt it. The slow suffocation of my own life, my own choices, dissolving under her iron grip. Then came our first anniversary. I had planned a perfect evening, candles, wine, and Daniel's favorite homemade meal. But just as I set the table, the door creaked open. Surprise! Margaret's sing-song voice rang through the house as she stepped in, completely uninvited, carrying a basket of food. I knew you'd forget to make something decent, so I brought dinner. My stomach twisted. Margaret, this was supposed to be just us. She waved a dismissive hand. Nonsense! A good marriage includes family. Daniel won't mind. And the worst part? He didn't. He gave me an apologetic look, but let her stay. That night, as I lay next to my husband, I stared at the ceiling, my body stiff with rage and sadness. Was this my life now? Fighting a ghost that refused to leave? Loving Daniel meant enduring her, but how much could I take? The thought of walking away crept in like a whisper, but something inside me held on. Not yet. A week later, everything changed. I woke up to the sound of whispering. Margaret stood in the doorway of our bedroom, phone pressed to her ear. She's weak, she murmured. Daniel will see that soon enough. Once she gives up, I'll make sure things go back to how they were. My breath hitched. My blood ran cold. That was it. My moment of clarity. I would not be erased. The next day, I set a trap. I invited Margaret over for tea, playing the part of the submissive daughter-in-law. She arrived with that same smug air, sitting in my kitchen as if she owned it. I poured her tea, sat across from her, and then I spoke. I know what you're doing, Margaret. Her smile froze. Excuse me? I heard you last night, I said, my voice calm but firm. You want me to fail. You want to break me. I leaned in, my eyes locking onto hers. But you won't. This is my marriage, my home, and you're nothing more than a guest. For the first time, Margaret was speechless. Her lips parted, but no words came out. I could see the wheels turning, the calculations, the realization that she had lost control. I straightened, my voice unwavering. You don't control Daniel anymore, and you sure as hell don't control me. A long silence stretched between us. Then, slowly, she exhaled, adjusted her cardigan, and stood. Without another word, she walked out the door. Something had shifted. Daniel noticed immediately. Margaret stopped barging in unannounced. The late-night calls dwindled. The first time she invited us over, instead of forcing herself into our space, Daniel turned to me, eyes wide with curiosity. What did you do? He asked. I set boundaries, I said. And for the first time, he saw it. The war I had been fighting alone. That night, he held me close, whispering, I'm sorry. I should have stood up for you sooner. Margaret never became warm or affectionate, but she respected me. And with time, so did Daniel. Our marriage grew stronger because I fought for it, because I refused to be erased. Sometimes nightmares don't end by running away. Sometimes they end when you turn around, look the monster in the eyes, and say, no more. And that was the last time I ever let anyone make me feel small. Thank you for listening to my story.